Alfred, I told you not to call me when I'm fighting crime. Yes, I know, Master Wayne, but we need to talk. Not now. I'm hot on the trail of Harvey Dent. That's just it. You're always hot on the trail of one villain or another. You're never home, and you don't spend time with your friends. Your behavior is causing isolation, which can lead to depression and loneliness. I'm not depressed. Look, do you even hear yourself? I am Gotham's protector. I am everywhere. I see everyone. You prance about rooftops, lurking in darkness, wearing tights in a cape. They're bulletproof tights. That's not the point. Look, some people remain secluded. Others show a disingenuous form of themselves. But you literally wear a mask and skulk in the shadows. I am Batman. You're Bruce Wayne, and to say that your behavior has become abnormal is an understatement. Fact of the matter is, you're lonely, and you need to learn how to start making connections that matter with people, or you may end up becoming one of those shadows that you hide in. Connections that matter. Yes, exactly. Connections that matter. You need to learn how to be honest with yourself enough to embrace behavior that fosters interactions with yourself and others that are genuine and meaningful. Will they fear the night? No. That's just it. Look, I don't think I'm getting through to you. I am vengeance. You're a loony. Listen, I want you to listen to a podcast. You can listen while you're driving your little Batmobile through Gotham, pouncing on criminals from the rafters. It's called Connections That Matter, and it focuses not only on individuals like yourself who have become isolated, but also offers a helping hand to those who are socially integrated but would like the connections they make to be deeper and more meaningful. Look, just give it a try, Bruce. It can't hurt. And if you do like it, click share so others can have a go at it, all right? There's Harvey. Send me the podcast. I'll listen while I'm making a dent in him. That was a bat pun. No. All right, here. There you go. And welcome to Connections That Matter. On this show, we are going to dive into the world of relationships, both with others and with ourselves. The goal here is to provide clarity and insight into how we can form connections that are genuine and meaningful within ourselves and with others. And to do so, we are going to be looking at things through a very particular lens all through this series. So bear with me as I establish a perspective that we will use to examine things with before we get into the actual episodes. First off, are we being honest with ourselves? I have found through practical experience that I am the easiest person for me to lie to, but that my behavior tells me the truth. Well, honest about what? We're going to focus on whether or not we're going into survival mode and whether or not we are isolating. And even more importantly, are we doing these things but we're not aware of it? These are very common anesthetizing behaviors our background brain likes to throw at our thinking brain to cushion it from pain that it's harboring from all sorts of things, past trauma being one of them. Unfortunately, these behaviors really put a damper on doing our part in forming connections that matter. There's plenty of other numbing behaviors that are available to folks: drug and alcohol abuse, overworking, turning ourselves off from society. These are all defense reactions within ourselves. But I mentioned those first two because they are big dominoes. We topple whether or not we're in survival mode and whether or not we're isolating and many other dominoes are sure to follow as a natural result. So that's the lens we're going to look at a lot of different things through. The other parameter I need to explain before we really get going are the 3 zones: the safe zone, the stretch zone, and the danger zone. Not a Top Gun reference. The safe zone is just that. We are in places and activities that we are totally comfortable with. The danger zone is just the opposite. Places and activities that we are fearful of and tend to trigger survival mode. Growth seldom happens in these 2 zones. Now, the stretch zone is in the middle. We are in places and engaging in activities that are outside of our comfort zone, but not so much that they trigger fear and survival mode. This is actually where most constructive learning happens and where we are going to encourage ourselves to engage with both ourselves and others. When we initially sent out a survey for desirable content on this podcast to a bunch of folks, the number 1 winner, hands down, was how to be a better listener. And I want to follow that episode up with one called How to Speak to Others so that they will want to listen to you. And it seems logical enough. And listen and speak to others, well, we need to start a conversation first. But how do we start a conversation without creating a collision? That should be where we start. And it gives me an excellent opportunity to put these 3 zones into context by example. First off, and I want to get this elephant out of the room, fact of the matter is, many of us hesitate to start conversations because of a preconceived notion that our company is not of value to others, or we are afraid of others because they are the unknown. These are common underlying factors that often we are unaware that we even harbor, that create an unnecessary barrier between us and making connections with others. We feel a conversation we start won't matter to others, that they won't value us. This is a false belief I want to smash right now. You do matter. You are very important. And you are very, very valuable. You are a unique individual. There is no one out there quite like you, and thus you have something nobody else has. You have you. Also, fear of the unknown is totally natural. It's the human instinct that prevents me from attending my neighbor Agatha's weekly Yarn and Darn quilting group. I don't know what those ladies get up to, so it frightens me a little. I would have no idea of what to talk about with them. But let's say, for example, I work up the courage to attend this rather nefarious-sounding gathering. When I go, whom should I approach when I arrive? And what should I say or ask? These are both good questions we're going to address right now. Where should I go? Well, there are plenty of places one can go to connect with others. The first step is to access a resource centralized around conveying these opportunities. Most communities have these. Here in Bellingham, where we are broadcasting from, we receive an online publication called The Hamster Wheel, which basically just tells us everything going on in Bellingham that week. Everything from one-off events to special interest groups that meet regularly. Remember, even if you don't find something that you are infatuated with in the beginning, the goal is to get out and meet others, because isolation and loneliness are spokes on the same wheel. Who knows? Maybe you'll find through adjacency that something is more interesting than you thought from a distance. So let's say, for example, I decide to take a small risk and visit my neighbor Agatha's Yarn and Darn quilting group. It's a small risk because she's already my neighbor. I haven't seen any fresh dirt in her backyard, so I know she's not burying husbands. But also, quilting isn't something I do, so it's in the stretch zone. What do I do when I walk in? Well, first, I look around. Who is where and doing what? Is there a group standing in the kitchen where the tea is being served, chatting amiably? If so, that's the first place I should head, where people are already engaging each other in conversation. On the other hand, the mom who is busy trying to wiggle a yarn sweater onto a squirrely child is otherwise engaged, and not really the best idea to approach for conversation at that time. Maybe some of the people seated, already yarnin' and darnin', are approachable. Look for an open and receptive body language. Did they look up to see you and smile right at you as you enter? That's a great person to say, "Hello, my name is so-and-so. I'm new. Who should I talk to about yarnin' and darnin'?" Chances are they will either point you to an organizer whose role it is to greet and inform you, or they themselves might turn out to be someone who is easy to talk to. Okay, so now I'm adjacent to either someone who has appeared open to interaction with their body language and an absence of distracting duties, or a group of folks chatting over where their beverages are. Well, what do I say? I know nothing of quilting. Well, guess what? This may come as a surprise that I want to empower you with today. Knowing nothing about a topic for which many people are gathered who do know a lot about it is your ticket in. Remember, the first part of being an effective communicator is being a good listener, and to initiate listening is as easy as asking questions and opening our ears. People just love talking about what they know and take an interest in. Take sports, for example. You may think that my know nothing about football would keep me permanently ostracized from hanging out in a living room full of fanatics bantering about the game on TV. I am here to testify to you today from personal practical experience that nothing is further from the truth. Although I have to get past my own internal barriers, I have to first be honest with myself and recognizing that using the fact that I know nothing about football to avoid engaging those who do is me enabling anesthetizing behavior in the form of isolation. Once I'm there, all I have to do is ask a question. Why did he purposely throw it out of bounds? Well, that's to stop the clock. That team is behind and the game is almost over, so they want the clock to go as slow as possible to give them a better chance of moving that ball to the end zone. Bang! Just like that, I'm in a conversation. Now, eventually, you're going to want to be heard, and your persona acknowledged, and your values recognized. And we'll get to that in the future. For now, we want our foot in the door. Now, even though Agatha's quilting group is about as polar opposite demographically and behaviorally from Hank's Super Bowl meltdown, this tactic to meet people and get into a conversation is exactly the same and equally effective. Though there's not as much yelling and cussing and not a single trace of nacho cheese on the walls, there are people at that quilting group who have all sorts of ideas and opinions about quilting and would love to talk about it just as much as Hank the Tank wants to explain why his favorite team has the best running backs in the league. All I have to do is ask and then listen. And here's another tip. It's okay to have questions worked out ahead of time. It's okay to have them written down. Many of us go blank when we are in front of people we don't know, and that is totally normal. There's nothing wrong with you. Don't be discouraged by this. Instead, think of questions ahead of time and jot them down. Just whatever you do, don't get your lists mixed up. Oh, the last thing you want to do is start asking about what it means to be offsides at the line of scrimmage with Imogen, who was holding her tea and explaining how to crochet a doily. That is most likely going to confuse Imogen greatly and she will just have to start all over at the beginning again, and this will make her tea cold. And you most certainly don't want to experience the awkwardness that is sure to ensue upon presenting Hank the Tank with a question like, so when you're knitting a doily, do you place emphasis on matching color or pattern to the dining ensemble? Attending my neighbor's house was in the stretch zone for me. I was out of my element for sure because quilting isn't my thing, and I'd rather be home reading a book or watching a show. But if I'm honest with myself, I'll acknowledge that spending all my time only doing this is isolating and doesn't help me make connections that matter. On the other hand, if I just throw myself into the jaws of competitive quilting by putting myself on national television as a contestant on the reality show Crochet Survivor, I'm putting myself right in the danger zone. Because on that island, elimination is the name of the game, and those ladies play for keeps. Same with football. I'm not going to learn, if I like it or not, sitting in my room, playing with my Legos and eating Eggos. Conversely, sneaking into the Seahawks locker room, suiting up in a uniform and running straight out into where they're doing tackle drills is also going to teach me nothing other than what it feels like to be hit by a human truck and spend 6 months in traction. That would also be in the danger zone. Coming out in the living room where my roommates are watching a game and asking a few, not a lot, a few questions is in the stretch zone. Not something I would ordinarily do on my own. But I am welcomed by those who have an appreciation for the sport and are only too happy to share their expertise with me. Engaging people at their points of interest is a much easier way to form connections that matter than staying in our comfort zones and waiting for the world to come to us. Asking questions is a good way of opening with people you don't know. It's leaps and bounds more likely to produce interaction than starting out by telling everybody what you think. And it also has a bonus side effect of being easy on the insecurities a lot of us feel about ourselves by shifting the focus on them instead of us. And in that light, if you feel insecure, I don't want you to feel like you're broken. You're not. Because by following the suggestions I've made today, by asking questions instead of brashly wading into conversation with your own swagger, you may find that you are, in fact, better at forming new connections with new people than you thought you were. In fact, better than many at this very aspect of life you thought you were so vexed by. This is actually a strength when it comes to forming connections, not a weakness. And I want you to see that positive light within yourself. Our next segment will be about that listening, the thing we do once we've asked a question, how to be a better listener, viewed through a lens of being honest with ourselves and recognizing our own behaviors. That's coming up next time on Connections That Matter. Thank you for joining me today. I'm your host, Mike. And between now and then, if, when you're being honest with yourself, you feel lonely, go out. Engage others by asking questions and then listening. Because loneliness isn't the end of the story. It's where connections begin.